So we had to do the discussions on AM Talk. I have here with me a member of the NDC's legal team, but also a law lecturer, a practicing lawyer as well. And Abraham Amaliba is my guest. He will be joined later also by Emmanuel who is a member of parliament for Ayawaso West Wuogon constituency. He's a member of the NDC. And thanks for joining me, sir. We have the Minister of Health seemed to have, I don't know whether incurred the anger of Parliament for, well, announcing that clinical trials are expected to begin at Hohwe in the Volta region for the Ebola disease or the Ebola virus. And MPs seem to have reacted angrily to the subject. We know that over the last 12, 13, 14 hours, it's been a huge thing and dominating the media airwaves.
Yeah. Let me say good morning to your viewers. I heard Parliament yesterday, and I was surprised at their pronouncement. I don't know what authority they have to do what they did yesterday.
Meaning what?
To stop the processes and ask that it should be suspended. Because, see, there is an agency responsible for these matters. That's the Food and Drugs Authority. And that authority has okayed the processes. So I want to know the authority that Parliament had, or where Parliament had its power to do what it did. Parliament passes laws. Now, if you pass your law and you empower an institution, you don't act in ways that suggest that you are undermining that institution. In any case, you could see that from their pronouncement, they were making comments that suggest that they were ill-informed. And this needed to be taken seriously in terms of their ability to understand and comprehend what was happening. Clinical trials are done everywhere in the world. And they are done in accordance with international standards. I agree that what has gone wrong with this clinical trial is that the information, education has not gone down well with the people. But for Parliament to hear, and you hear some parliamentarians saying that 200 Ghana cedis has been given for the life of people, and that mobile phones were given for the exchange of these clinical trials, trying to undercut and undermine the whole...
You're saying that's sensational?
Sensational and ill-informed on their part. See, when the Ebola struck, we went to the World Health Organization for assistance. They came in here and set up some logistics for us. Before the World Health Organization could even come and assist us, they had done clinical trials somewhere, and so brought in some drugs to see how they can assist the situation. If we in Ghana are saying that we don't want clinical trials, then who do we want to be used for the clinical trial so that we can benefit from the main trial, the main drug? I think that the Parliament should rather have invited, and they've done it, the Minister of Health and even the research team to come and brief them on the effects or whatever that clinical trial has in it. But to stop the process, I think that they have overstepped their bounds. Parliament has overstepped its bounds.
Katie Amon is a member of Parliament for Adanse Asokwa. He described the decision to go ahead with clinical trials as silly.
Silly. When you are ill-informed, what do you know about clinical trials? The fact that you are a parliamentarian passing all manner of laws doesn't mean that you have knowledge in all aspects of...
Well, there have been reports about clinical trials that have gone wrong decades later.
Yes.
And people don't know until decades later when there have been investigations that have uncovered the things that have gone wrong.
Yes. And one such clinical trial that had gone wrong is the Nuremberg trials, where some researchers were hauled there. But I'm saying that before you come to this conclusion and say that something is silly, you must be well informed. As a parliamentarian sitting in that August House, you don't make such comments which will undermine and undercut research institutions. What I think is that there's so much apprehension in terms of the trial, and that some people are going to be used as guinea pigs. I think that...
So that has led to the skepticism. And you think that the MPs to have bought into the skepticism?
And indeed, one of them said that, I think it was KBTTM, who said that he's going to join the bandwagon. Meaning that you are just joining and you don't know what the issues are, and you are just joining because there's a bandwagon. And I think that they can do better. What I think is that the sample should cut across all regions. I can't comprehend why it should be dedicated to Volta region. The sample should cut across. And I dare say that I don't think that there's anything negative about taking the Volta region. There's everything good about it. But I think that because of the apprehension, it should cut across. The leader of that research group, Professor Binka, is from the Volta region. The Minister of Health is from the Volta region. And I don't think that they would deliberately allow their people to be killed. But with this apprehension, let's intensify education. Let's inform the people what this clinical research has, the benefits, and then we can also cut across the sample across the various regions.
Well, again, we have to say that if they say they are doing trials, it doesn't mean that you'll be infected with Ebola. Well, it just means that perhaps they use antibodies and things like that. So they need to make sure that, well, you as a human being, your body makeup can resist the virus as it is. Because
and
now we have
as we speak now, there are clinical trials going on in this country. But we've not heard people say that they are going to be infected by that.
You mean
there's clinical trials for other ailments. There's clinical trial going on currently on malaria. Are you saying that people are going to be infested with malaria? So I think the education has not gone down well. I agree. There's what in research work, there's what is called prior informed consent. You need to have the consent of the people. How are they going to benefit? All these things were not done.
You need to have the buy-in of the people.
Exactly.
Yes.
You buy in the people's consent. Yes. That's what I think has not happened in this one.
Now, as far as this is concerned, is government going to benefit? So, well, not the government, the states, perhaps the research companies or the pharmaceutical agents, or if it's a World Organization, are they giving government some money, maybe to invest in health or other infrastructural health projects?
Sure, we are a member of the World Health Organization, and I indicated to you that even when this Ebola virus broke out, Ghana was used as a staging point to combat the disease. Some equipments were brought into this country. Nonetheless, if you are talking about direct benefit, the benefit will go to everybody in the world because we are going to be used for the research work, but the benefit will be, as it were, spread all over the world. But again, once it's a research work, some money will be given out to carry out the research, and that is what may be a direct benefit to Ghana. But again, as a member of the World Health Organization, we have a duty to respond to some of these things when the call comes. Because we are the same people who also call on the World Health Organization to come to our aid when we are in crisis in terms of a disease outbreak. So we've just heard about some bird flu that has been confirmed by some Italian research company. The first trial was done in Noguchi. It was said to be bird flu. We now have the confirmation. So if there is a problem and we think that we want to combat it, World Health Organization will surely come to our aid. And I think that as a member of the group, we have to be responsible and play our roles as well.
Oduajaho, the Speaker of Parliament, says that there should be a cessation or suspension of whatever it's going on to further notice. And you're saying they don't have the right.
And then, yes, what law gives them the right to do that? Again, I think that it's a knee-jerk reaction. It's a knee-jerk reaction coming from Parliament because also they are not informed. They are not, and I think that they should have sought, because I also heard the Parliament Subcommittee on Health, Yirechere, and he was upbeat and was not pessimistic as the rest of the parliamentarians. He did not understand why his colleagues went that way. He was of the
Why is that? Because he has foreknowledge?
Because he has foreknowledge, and he thought that, according to him, they had slated the committee, the research committee, to come to brief the House. They had slated the committee to come and brief either the health committee or the whole House. I don't know which one. But the committee, the research committee, was to come and brief Parliament on this matter. And I'm sure if they had waited for that research committee to meet Parliament, I'm sure they would have had a second thought, and they wouldn't have gone the way they have gone. I think that what they are doing or what they have done would undermine institutions that have been given responsibilities to perform certain roles. Because once you pass the law, you are no more sealed with the power to be regulating. What they are doing is to sit in Parliament and regulating things, and I think that is completely
We
out
always
of.
hear this. Parliament is the body of representatives of the people.
Yes.
Well, if that is so, law or not, they need to have hindsight about whatever is going on.
Yes, they can raise concerns
Through the health minister.
through the health minister. They can
answer.
pull somebody to invite somebody to come to the floor of the house and explain, but they don't have the power to go out of parliament and ask institutions to stop what they are doing. Well, look, if they had that power, there have been some disagreements some parliamentarians have raised, but they didn't have the power to stop those activities. There was this expansion of there was Takrady, the building of some port, a new port,
The
Londro port. The parliamentarians, some parliamentarians disagreed. Why didn't they?
They went to court.
They went to court. They
And
knew
the court
that.
said they
They,
didn't
they
have
need, yeah, so they had to go to court. So if you think that you disagree with certain things, you do not sit in parliament and make orders. I think that is where I have problems with. I don't know under what law.
Can the FDA decide to overrule their?
Oh, the FDA can call their bluff and go ahead, and because the FDA is that institution that has been mandated to regulate all this, and the FDA has also given them a go ahead. If Parliament is dissatisfied, what Parliament can do was to summon the FDA to come and explain to them, and not for Parliament to. And I wish my colleague were here. He's a parliamentarian to react to this and tell
he's been
me
a chief executive of
FDA as well. That would have been a very good. And I think when he even comes in, we have to revisit the.
Yeah, we'll revisit the subject and try to ask him this. We're told that they were supposed to have been given the samples. They would have been given 200 Ghana cedis and then a mobile phone. Well, we're told that the initial money was supposed to have been 2,500. Somebody is pocketing 2,300, so to speak. District Assembly polls are expected to come into force following the CI, which is 89, which is to guide the conduct of this year's.
You talked about the 200 Ghana cedis. My understanding, and the mobile phone, my understanding is that because those people have been earmarked for this clinical trial, you need to have regular communication with them. People have misconstrued that to mean that you are bribing them with a mobile phone. But you are using people to do a clinical trial. They are not going to be stationary at a place for you to be always going.
So you need to know where they are.
So you need to know, you need to find out, you need to, exactly. So it is not as if they are using their lives in exchange of mobile phones or 200. That one must be made clear.
You're very vociferous on the subject this morning. The constitutional instrument 89, which is to guide the conduct of this year's district assembly polls, we know there's been a suspension already. Will come into force Wednesday. With this development, the EC can now go ahead and fix a date for the holding of the elections. The CI was laid in Parliament on March 20, and this year means that it also has been gazetted same day. As the law stipulates, a CI can only come into force after it has been laid in Parliament for some 21 sitting days. You make of this?
Yes.
Now it means that they can just go ahead.
Yeah, once Parliament has...
The election that cost us 300 million, we're told.
Yeah, it is something that was bad enough. It had a drain on our national coffers. There were those who were saying that the EC should be surcharged for that, but I think that this is just an administrative oversight, and I don't think that anybody should be surcharged. After 21 days, sitting days, if Parliament does not annul it, it comes into force. And is today June 11th?
Yes, today is.
It's June 11th.
Yes.
So the CI will come into force today. Hopefully, the EC, this morning I heard them ruling out the timetable for the elections. The absence of the assembly in our various metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies has caused some problems. There are some DCs whose tenure of office has expired, but they are still holding on because there is no assembly to confirm or either deny them the opportunity. So the absence of the assembly is creating some challenges, and I think that with the coming into force of this CI, the way is now clear for the Electoral Commission to now conduct the elections. But a warning, the last assembly elections were not handled properly, and I don't think that we want to revisit that. I don't think that we want to see that again. The EC must be up and doing. In the last assembly election, we had the elections in what in Ghanaian parlance we'll call tot. It was not conducted at the same time all over the country. Some parts of the country where elections were held, other parts were held at another time. And I don't think that was good enough. I think the EC should do a good job this time, hold the elections simultaneously everywhere, and allow the process to be transparent. And I think that the EC has everything to profit from if they are able to conduct this election.
It will all depend on whether they have the available facilities, because the difficulty they had were the facilities.
The EC has always prepared a budget. And time without number, when you ask them, they tell you that government has met their budget. They have always indicated that at each stage of the process, wherever they get to, government provides funds. So if government satisfies them financially, I don't think that they have any excuse. In the last election, they didn't cite lack of funds from government. They didn't say that government withheld some funds. So if government has met their requirement, I think that they should be up and doing and not, as it were, provide us with that kind of shambolic elections that they did at the last elections. Yeah.
How vital are the assemblies that will be elected? Because there will be it's a composition of the various elected assembly members.
It is very key, and it is sad that as a nation we have not given much importance to the district assembly elections, and then having representation at that level.
They are not paid even, I think.
They are not paid.
It's a voluntary service.
It's a voluntary service. At the end of it, they give them sitting allowance anytime they sit. I think that there's need for us to understand that at that level, that is where the people come face to face with government. It is that level, at that district assembly level, that people interface with government. You need to have people who understand issues at that level. But you see, we have left the district assembly elections to people who, excuse my words, are not, if you can provide me with the word, but people who are not astute, in politics, or do not understand the issues at that level.
As far as governance is concerned.
As far as governance is concerned. It is the orphan of all the election processes that we have in this country. And I even think that party primaries are even considered more important than the district assembly.
Which you think should not be? Because it's a foundation.
It's a foundation of all this democratic experiment that we are engaged in. And I think that we need to rethink and see how we can make that level very formidable.
Why have we reached this very point? Where, you see? Where is it because they are not paid, and sometimes the people in the society don't seem to think that they are very critical in the governance structure?
You see, with the advent of party politics, the district assembly election predates our current democratic dispensation. Assemblymen existed before the 1992 Constitution. Now, at that time, it was taken seriously. People like Pakosi, Indum and Co. were assemblymen, you know that. I can mention Mahama Yarga was one of them at the Boko area. So you saw people who knew what they were about going into the district assembly elections and then to contest. With the advent of politics, all these people have gravitated towards the national level and have made that level to look like an orphan of all the processes under our democratic process. Secondly, you would be talking about the fact that it is one of the areas that the assemblymen are not paid, as you indicated, and so there's no incentive.
So it doesn't motivate them?
It doesn't motivate people to go in there. People feel that it's a burden because what would they benefit directly? I agree that if addition is to be taken to pay assemblymen, it will cost the nation a fortune. I agree. But I also think that there's a need to at least give them some stipends. Let's start from somewhere. Because you see, the assemblyman is seen as the first point of call in every community. People go there for their school fees. Community members go there for advice. In some cases, assemblymen play the role of mediators and arbitrators in communities. So they are overwhelmed, and I think that there's a need for the state to think about giving them some stipends. Else, we would continuously see a situation where the assembly concept would fizzle out, and that would affect the whole democratic process. There are people who are calling for it to be partisan. Take it or leave it, it is partisan now. You can just see the partisan nature by looking at the adverts of the various
their flyers.
Their flyers.
You see their flyers or their posters. If it's green, black, only without symbols.
Without symbols.
Yes.
So
but you see blue, red, white.
So
or green, black, red.
Exactly. So, but they will tell you that these colors are not the preserve of only one political party. And so they are not partisan.
So indirectly giving messages to the top politicians that, well, look, I
belong to you. And so sponsor me so that I can go and do your bidding at the district assembly level. I think, so if we have come to a point that we think that there's a need for us to make it partisan, then let's open it up and make it partisan. If not, then I think that we should put in measures that would ensure that people are not affiliated to any of the political parties as we have.
Well, we spoke to the Electoral Commission, especially on this very subject about organizing elections and the district level elections. And so we want to give you a playback. Now we'll come and wrap up our discussions on the subject of the constitutional instrument 89 that now will see the EC going forward to put together that very election, the district level election that initially was called off.
Well, we've not been told by Parliament that the instrument matures today. And once again, we would expect that when it matures, we will be officially informed by Parliament that the instrument has matured. And then we can put in place the timetable for the conduct of the district level election.
And on this score as well, do we have an idea when you're going to hold it?
No, nobody put out any date. We don't have, as we speak now, we don't have any date. It is when Parliament says that the instrument has matured, then we will look at the processes that we have to go through, the activities that we have to undertake, and then fix a date for the elections finally.
Of course, a lot of money was spent on the previous one, the botched one. Is the EC resource to conduct this time around?
Well, let me say that we have indicated that we would need 90 million Ghana cedis to be able to bring the district level elections to a close, because some of the materials that were printed, especially the ballot papers, cannot be reused. Too often you hear people talk about 300 million cedis going wasted. No, 300 million cedis have not been wasted, and I want to stress that. We spent a lot of money training officials, procuring items that we were going to use for the elections, including ballot papers, including the fact that we are putting additional biometric verification devices at the polling stations, including the fact that we have already printed the declaration of results forms, which are still useful, and we're going to use them anytime that we have the elections. And it is the reason why we are not asking for the same quantum of money to be able to run the elections. We're asking for an additional 90 million because we cannot use ballot papers again. And there are some activities that we'll need to do a bit of brushing to be able to sharpen the efficiency of the officials. So we have submitted that requirement to government, and we are hopeful that they will find money for us to do it.
Well, so Christian Owusu-Parry, the Director for Public Relations, Electoral Commission, saying the Commission is ready to roll out, make formal announcement to do the necessary publicity and make sure that they roll out the district level elections. But we know that initially they were candidates, they had spent a lot of money already. How do they pick up the pieces and move on from here?
This is going to increase the budgets of the prospective candidates. I'm sure even when the whole exercise was suspended. They had to go around again to see people and do visitation. You don't, and under this dispensation, you don't visit people without giving them money. So it will increase their costs. But I also think that the EC is asking for some 90 million. I think that some of the things that they procured, some can be used. Some of the activities that they undertook will not need to be undertaken again. I don't think that they will have to train officials again. So they may have to look into their budget and see whether they will be able to cut down on certain things. I think that it's a good idea that it's coming off now, finally, even though the suspension has caused a lot of problems. Let's see how it rolls out. And I think that Parliament should quickly inform them of the maturity of the CI so that they can also roll out their processes. Because the fear is that by September, if they do not get assemblymen in place, the budgets, the plans that were drawn by the previous assembly will come to an end in September. So we need to have an assembly in place quickly so that there will not be a lacuna, a gap, so that they can also take...
By the close of the financial year,
yeah,
you mean, because September, October is the close of the financial year. All right.